Today, we are going to find out which OMEGA Seamaster is right for you. Welcome back to Time in the Wrist at Chisholm Hunter. Today, we are blessed with the presence of 3 OMEGA Seamaster 300M. In my opinion, these are the most popular models, along with the green, which we don't have, but we will talk about. So let's discuss which one of these is right for you, because if you're looking to buy, it can be overwhelming. Believe me, I've been there. Right, so what we're going to do is begin with the specs of these models, run through all the specs and how they kind of look a little bit different per model, and then I'm going to try and guide you in the right direction. I am here to make the decision for you, but I'm going to give a rough guide of which one is right for you. Now, when it comes to the thickness of all these watches, of course, they are all the same, and they are quite chunky models. They come in at around 13.7 to 13.8 millimeters in thickness, but you do need to remember that they have 300 meters of water resistance, so they can go quite deep. With that said, they do have 3 strap options. In my hand at the moment, this has the rubber strap on it. On my white dial that I have in my left hand, it actually has the NATO strap, and also we have the option of that bracelet as well. And we'll put the bracelet on the screen so that you can see it. What I would bear in mind here is that the NATO strap actually lifts the face of the watch even higher so that it sits a little bit higher off the wrist. To be honest, I kind of wish it was slimmer so that I could wear my NATO without feeling like it's too big. It does get a little bit thick with that NATO for my preference. If you want a slimmer watch, then I would go for the rubber or the bracelet. Having said that, the NATO is really handsome, so it's just one of those things. The case and the bracelet, if you choose to go with it on these models, are all stainless steel. Now, I do know that there's other metal variations you can go for. There's golden steel, there's titanium, but for the subject or preference of this video, we have gone for the steel models as they are the most popular models. The steel on these models looks absolutely beautiful. It's a combination of polished and brushed, and it has pretty long lugs. The crown sits really comfortably in between the 2 crown guards, and it's obviously a screw down crown, giving it a water resistance of 300 meters. To be honest, on the black dial, the steel looks so much better because you've got that contrast between the black and the kind of lightness of the steel when it's polished and reflecting in the light. So that's kind of a head nod to the black. The black, it's really simplistic, and I feel like the blue isn't as striking because it doesn't have that contrast between the steel. It's a little point, but let's move on. Moving quickly on to the weight of all 3 of these models. Now, the bracelet version, and we'll put the bracelet on the screen at the moment, comes in at 171 grams. Then what we'll do is we'll put these 2 on the scales to show you how much these weigh so that you can choose between a lighter watch or a heavier watch. So with the rubber strap, it comes in, and I'm putting the blue dial on the scales at the moment, at 113 grams. So it's still pretty heavy, but it's considerably lighter than the bracelet. I have a hunch that my NATO OMEGA will come in even lighter than that. So with the NATO strap, it comes in at 104 grams. So if you want something light, then I would go with the NATO. If you want something in the middle, then I would go with the rubber. And if you want something heavier with a bit of heft, more metal to it, and actually that's cold to put on in the morning, that's a really weird thing, but some watch enthusiasts like that, including me, then go with the bracelet. Let's quickly touch on the lugs of these models. Now, they are quite elongated and elegant, and especially when they're sat in between the rubber strap or the NATO that's over there, you can really see them, they're really prominent. If you don't like these lugs, if you want to camouflage the size of them a little bit, if you want it to wrap around your wrist a little bit more, shall we say, then go for the bracelet, because the bracelet sits really comfortably in between it and almost camouflages the length of those lugs. So if you don't like the lugs, go with the bracelet. Moving quickly on to the comfortability aspect and wearability aspect of the 3 kind of variations, which is of course the NATO, the rubber, and the bracelet. What makes it more comfortable to me, and this is a little trick that I've kind of picked up, is when you discuss it amongst subscribers, when you discuss it amongst the community and get the community's take on it. And if you could subscribe and add to that community, I would really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Anyway, as I was saying, between the NATO rubber and the bracelet, I think I have quite good grounds to give my opinion here, because I've owned this watch for 2 years and I've kind of made up my mind about which strap was most comfortable and most wearable to me. And in my opinion, it's the rubber. And let me tell you why. When you wear the NATO, although it looks brilliant and stylistically it just looks amazing, it pushes the head of the watch further up off the wrist, making it look thicker. I'm just too skinny for that. Maybe if you're a bigger guy with bigger wrists, then it will fit. To me, it just didn't fit. And then when I had the bracelet, I got it destroyed. I knocked the bracelet about far too much and I was really upset about getting the bracelet scratched. So the perfect in between for me there was the rubber, because I wasn't scared of damaging it and it also wasn't raising the head of the watch. To be honest guys, I think rubber's best here. And at long last, we move on to the face of all of these models. This is kind of where the debate heats up. So let's begin at the beginning. There's a blue dial, there's a white dial, there's a black dial, there's now the new green dial, which we'll put up on the screen at the moment, and there's also a grey with a blue bezel. Now there's a couple more limited editions, one with a black dial and a steel bezel, but that is the core range right there. And let me firstly just run down my decision of why I got the white dial, and then I'll kind of guide you in terms of what color fits what situation. I went with the white dial and black bezel, and here's the thing about why I went with this model. In my lifestyle, I do kind of adventurous things. I do photography and videography up hills, and when I look at that watch, it's a little bit more eye-catching. And when I look at the white dial with black bezel, it's very easy to read. It's probably the easiest, in my opinion, out of all of these models to read. And I can just imagine it being worn in adventurous circumstances. Whereas when I look at the black dial, it's a little bit more discreet. It's a little bit more stealthy. I can imagine that being worn more into the office or more to fancy graduation dinners. So they both have very different personalities. And I think that my brother has the black dial and I have the white dial, and that screams a lot about our personalities. We're both very different people. Moving quickly on to the blue dial. This screams less of an everyday wearer to me and more of a holiday watch. I can imagine wearing this in the Med, or when I was in Spain last week, I can imagine swapping out my white for the blue. And the reason I say this is because I believe that more neutral colors, and this is just my personal opinion, but more neutral colors are more everyday watches, whereas more colored watches are more special occasion watches that you feel a little bit more proud to put on in the morning. Not saying that I don't feel proud putting on my white OMEGA Seamaster, but I put it on every day, whereas the blue, you'd maybe put it on in special occasions. And now we move on to the green, and of course, let's not forget about the grey dial with the blue bezel as well. Now, both of these watches can be seen at chisholmhunter.co.uk, where we're actually authorised retailers for OMEGA watches, so head to chisholmhunter.co.uk to see them clearly. And now we get to the statement piece, which is of course the OMEGA Seamaster green dial. If you were wanting to make an impression, if you were wanting to take the stage and draw the eye, then this is the one to get. It was released this year and it's so popular that you literally cannot get them at the moment. Now they will be coming in and more are being produced, so you will be able to get your hands on them at Chisholm Hunter, but they're not here at the moment. I've not had this on the wrist yet, but I've seen videos, I've seen pictures, and it looks very, very bright green. It's definitely a statement piece. And when you compare the green to that grey dial with the blue bezel that we still need to talk about, you can really see the differences. I mean, it's so much brighter and it really catches the eye. It's not discreet at all. The movement in every single one of these Seamasters is the caliber 8800. This is an in-house self-winding movement with a coaxial escapement, certified by Master Chronometer, approved by METAS, and resistant to magnetic field reaching 15,000 Gauss. It also has a 55-hour power reserve, a rhodium-plated finish with Geneva waves in arabesque, and a free-sprung balance with silicone balance spring. I need to catch my breath, give me a second. Now, the grey dial with the blue bezel gets forgotten about a lot, and I don't really know why, because actually, because of the difference between the dial and the bezel, they're obviously different colours, I would choose that over the blue or the black. I personally love the colour difference there, the contrast there between the dial and obviously the bezel. I also love the bezel contrast to the white dial here. So if you enjoy that contrast and that more kind of eye-catching feel, then I would go for either the white or the gray. But if you prefer just a standard color across the watch, then the black, blue, or the green are your guys. Listen, you guys know that I could talk all day about the OMEGA Seamaster. It's one of my favorite watches in the world, and I go on about it far too much. But the rest of the specs are more or less the same amongst all of them. So I don't think that's the purpose of this video. The purpose is to give you guys more of a gauge as to which one is right for you. If you want to see the full in-depth review, then you can click up here. And if not, you can just hit the subscribe button instead. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. This has been a great video for me because I love OMEGA. So I will see you guys next time.